Hello, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of The Yard. Believe it or not, this is episode 13.
Lucky number 13.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, it feels like more like 11 or 12 to me. But maybe we should call this season 2, episode 1.
There you go.
Maybe
All right.
we'll do that.
Yeah.
But in either event, in any event, we have a bunch of, I see friends of ours who join us weekly, and thank you so much for that. We love to see you. But it is a little bit after 5 Pacific time, that is, where I am, which can mean only one thing, and that is it's time for another episode of The Yard. So welcome. The Yard, as you may know, is produced by Commissary Club, which is the first social network for 70 million Americans who have criminal records. My name is Richard Bronson. I'm the founder and CEO of Commissary Club, along with 70 Million Jobs, which is the first national for-profit employment platform for folks with records as well. And as usual, as has been for the last 12 episodes, I am once again joined by my two very dear friends. Number one, the big man, ex-NBA LA Lakers star, who taught a young Kobe Bryant everything he knows about the game, Mr. Seth Sundberg at center court.
Kobe's ghost is going to come down and haunt me, man. You keep telling people.
Maybe. And we also, the music you were enjoying was produced by none. Sorry?
The sultry sounds of.
Okay, when you do a show, you can describe it that way. But right now, let me.
I'm describing every song he does from here on out as that, period.
Okay. I am joined once again by my very good friend as well, rap star and entrepreneur to the stars, Mr. Victor Lombard, better known as Divine. Hey, D, how are you, sir?
What's going on, Rich? Great to be back.
You are going on, my friend. All right, before we get started, I just want to give a few housekeeping items. For those of you who've been here before, I apologize. We'll be bringing our two amazing guests out very, very shortly. Number one, as you may already know, if you've got questions or comments, please utilize the chat function at the bottom of the screen. And we all are watching it, and we'll try to address as they come up questions. Whoops. My ex-sister-in-law just called me. Let's see, so use the chat function, and about halfway through, we often will bring someone in, or one or two people in, who are watching with us. So if you're really digging the conversation, you want to be part of it, or you feel like you have something important that you'd like to add, please let Adrian know, who Adrian is also on our team. And she is behind the scenes running things. And I have to say, she's been doing a really great job. So I really appreciate it, but address that interest to Adrian, and we can see if we can hook you up. I get asked all the time, what is the Yard? What's the point? And the point is, like Commissary Club, our goal is to connect people, particularly people who have a record. That's number one. We figure if people are in connection, they can help one another, they can serve as role models, even inspire one another. And together, perhaps they can speak with one much louder voice. We're also eager to sort of portray the humanity of our guests, and hopefully ourselves, as it relates to the fact that, you know, yeah, we've done time, but really we're just human beings. Maybe we screwed up. Maybe we were young. We made a mistake, you know, a terrible mistake potentially, but nonetheless, you know, we're not that much different than anybody else. And we're also, lastly, eager to accurately depict what life is when you're incarcerated. You know, most people go by what they see in the movies or they see on TV, and that's really not a very fair depiction. It's worse than that, and it's also better than that. And a lot of it has to do with where you go and how long you're there. And we have two people here who are going to be speaking who had unique experiences that were pretty intense. So before we get started, to sort of get us into the right frame of mind, something we started initially and we're continuing to do. First, if everybody would just sort of follow along with me here and trust me. First, just take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Because I'd love you to sort of air out your mind and be expansive in your thoughts and imagination. Now, please close your eyes. And as you sort of let whatever happened today exit one side of your mind, I want you to allow a different sort of day to enter your mind, whereby, let's just imagine last night, you know, it's maybe it's one of the first nights in a long time you've been able to get out, and maybe you went out for dinner or for a cocktail with friends, or you were just taking a stroll down the street, and something happened. Something really bad happened. You made a mistake. You made an error. You did something that you shouldn't have done. You didn't give it much thought, but all of a sudden you realize, holy shit, did I just do that? And you know there are going to be implications for what you just did. And maybe it was simply as you got into your SUV after dinner, and maybe you had one extra glass of wine and you shouldn't have been behind the wheel. Maybe it's that, you know? Or maybe, you know, you got a letter from the IRS because they're investigating you because, you know, you took your family out for dinner and you called that a business expense. You know, people do that all the time, except now you got caught apparently, and it's not going to end well. So that's sort of in your mind, this vague sense of impending doom, I guess. And now imagine further, you know, you go home, you go to sleep, you're a little troubled, and you wake up and you open your eyes and you look around, and first thing you notice is someone is snoring right next to you. And it's not your significant other who you normally would be waking up to if you have someone like that. You look over and it's someone the same sex as you who is snoring and coughing and wheezing and having trouble breathing. And you're thinking, oh my God, is this person very sick? And you're looking around and you realize that the width of this room you're in, sleeping, the both of you, is maybe 6 feet wide. And you realize as you turn your head the other way, there's a sink and a toilet, a stainless steel toilet that your head is right next to, which is where you just slept. And you kind of pull yourself up and you realize, holy shit, I'm in prison. And it just sort of hits you, you know? It's kind of Kafkaesque, you know, to wake up that way. It's surreal, certainly. But all of a sudden you find yourself in this situation. And you're freaking out a little bit naturally. And then the guards are yelling and screaming and people are banging on the doors and all kinds of noise. And everyone is telling you to stand up and get online. And you do that. And they let you outside. They let you through a door, which is an open, big, empty field. It's dusty, and there are people around there kicking around a soccer ball or tossing around a football. And then there's the chance to sort of like walk around if you like. And then they have people working out. It's called the weight pile. And they're working out, and you're thinking, well, maybe that's what I should do. But then you remember that you have some friends here, and you walk directly to where they are because that's where they always are. And you realize you've been here for a long time. You've been here for years, in fact. You know everything about this place. And you walk over there and you see some of the people you know, and you smile at a couple of them because you like them, and you don't smile at the one you don't. And you hear one guy is arguing with another, and another person is very upset, and another person is laughing with another. And it hits you that maybe, just maybe, for these few moments that they let you out there in the yard, because that's where you are, out in the yard, maybe, just maybe, you could be a human being for this 45 minutes or hour, hour and a half. Maybe you could just sort of touch your own heart and that of others. Maybe you could connect on that level. And maybe you can think of all the pain that you caused others that you love, and how you totally screwed up your life so accidentally, with no forethought, a stupid mistake that you made, that maybe just for this few minutes, you can be a human being that has a life, and a life that'll continue once you get out of this place. So that's what I'd like to do right now, is to welcome you to that place. Welcome to the yard. Please open your eyes, and thanks for joining us here. All right. On the yard, there are some amazing people, and tonight that couldn't be more true. So let me introduce them to you. Number one, we have a man by the name of Artie Gonzales, or Artie Gonz. Artie, I think it's fair to say, was a tough kid on the streets when he was growing up. He was a gang leader. And at age 16, he killed somebody, or at least that's what he was charged with. And he was sentenced to life imprisonment, life at age 16. He did 21 years of his life sentence. And this was done, at least part of it was at the notorious Supermax at Pelican Bay. Really a very, very scary place to be. He was given solitary confinement for a period of that time. And he tells the story that when he was finally let out of solitary, and well, he'll describe it a lot better than I am right now, he had a panic attack because he was so unused to any kind of stimulation around him because he was in solitary for so long. But as he continued with his term, he became what prison officials called, he is the model prisoner. And he turned his life around like that. When he got out in 2015, he threw himself into a whole new life and a whole new career, working in Hollywood and show business. Now he's working not on the streets, not running a gang. He's working on film scripts and locations and studio deals. That's a change, Artie. Life has certainly changed. Thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Thank you for the welcome. Definitely happy to be here.
Good to have you.
What's up, everybody? Yep.
Better here than other places. And Artie is joined by a really incredible, powerful superwoman. Her name is Kathy Morse. And if you work in the criminal justice system at all, you know who Kathy Morse is, because she is a passionate, tireless woman who wears her emotions and passions on her sleeve because she cares that much. Kathy was incarcerated for 5 years, and among those 5 years, she spent about a year in Rikers Island in New York. Rikers Island is one of literally the worst places on the earth to be. I spent some time there, and it is singularly awful. It is a place that is pregnant with evil. It lurks everywhere. and violence is at any second can explode. She really went through hell there, which is not surprising. And I asked Kathy before I'm telling you all of this to make sure she was comfortable with me sharing this. And I'm sure it's not comfortable, but she feels it's important that it be shared. Kathy was sexually assaulted in prison by 4 inmates and beaten up and bad. She went to the see the doctor, who gave her all the wrong treatment and made things worse. In her own words, this is just a powerful statement and so much honesty. She said she went through so much trauma that I don't honestly know or think that I'll ever live long enough to process it. So arguably she's processing it right now. Like other returning citizens, this is an amazing, amazing characteristic of people who come out of prison. They all want to help their fellow brother and sister who's coming out, and to try to make it a little bit better if possible. And she does that in a big way. She works at the NJ Reentry Corporation. Kathy, we're so grateful to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is very humbling to me. But I'm also happy that I'm able to share my experiences with others.
Well, we're humbled that you would do so, and you know, if at any point you need to sort of take a breath and disengage, and that's true of you too, Artie, as well as you, Seth. Please,
Wow.
please, oh, no, Divine, Divine, you have to hang in there. But I'm not doing this alone.
Power through, D. You got it, D. You can power through.
But please, you know, feel free, obviously. All right. So let's start with you. The idea here is we're not doing interviews, just so everybody knows. I'm going to start asking a couple of questions just to get it going, and you guys can ask your own questions. Number one, you spent time in solitary, right, Artie?
Yes, that's right.
How old were you when you were thrown in solitary?
I want to say that I was somewhere between my mid to early 20s, like in that bracket, 23, 24, in that area.
And how long were you in solitary?
I was there for 8 years.
8 years in solitary?
8 years. Yep.
Great. It's amazing. All right. Well, I have to ask. If you don't want to answer, don't answer. But what was it? I mean, they sent you to prison already. What was it that you did so bad in prison that they needed to stick you there for 8 years?
I was a high-level gang member in the state of California, and that is the place where they send the so-called worst of the worst when they've been deemed too violent for even the other people who are incarcerated on the general population. So because of who I was, they deemed me as a security threat to the safety of the institutions, and they sent me up there. They basically bury you up there in a tomb. And of course, the hope is that through sensory deprivation, eventually you will crack and you will say, I'm going crazy here. I'm done. Let me out. You know, that's always been the goal of that. It doesn't work very effectively, as you can imagine. But after 8 years, I started to mature on my own, but that's why they sent me there. They were definitely trying to just put me away as a gang member.
Wow. What was your day in solitary like? Could you describe it? Like when you woke up, and what did you eat and what did you do?
Oh yeah, that's eventually that's the same thing every day. It's Groundhog Day in there. So you wake up. I used to wake up at 5:30. I'd brush my teeth. I would start stretching out. At 6 o'clock, I'd start exercising. I'd exercise to about 6:30 when they bring my tray to me. I'd get my tray. I'd put it away in like not plastic, but like paper containers, empty milk cartons, that kind of thing, because I wasn't going to eat it right away. I would continue my workout.
What did they give you? What did you typically get for breakfast?
It's different, usually it's just like eggs. Some days you have like boiled eggs. Everyone loves SOS Day, which is you know,
Cinnamon-
which is
cinnamon
basically
single-
like biscuits and gravy, right? So
I basically like it. Not really like it, but like
it's just
basically like it, kind of like it.
basically like it.
they basically it's different, so I think that's why they like it, but it's different. You get a couple of those triangle shaped potato wedges. They're kind of like the ones you get at McDonald's, but they're triangle. They basically
Hash
taste
brown.
like tater tots. They're delicious. I'm sorry, but I do miss those. They're delicious. Um,
You're a
and
cheap date, Artie.
oh yeah, I'm very cheap actually. Yeah. So it would be stuff like that. On Saturdays, it's some kind of like pancakes or coffee cake. But nothing really spectacular, man. It's a very small breakfast. You put it away, finish your workout, and then I would shower in my cell. Basically, I'd fill up my sink and just start showering, wash myself off. After I was
You
done
would
with that,
fill up your sink. I'm sorry to interrupt. You'd fill up your sink to take a shower?
I would fill up my sink. I mean, they have showers in there, but you don't get them every day. So you learn how to shower in your own cell.
The bird bath.
You take the bird bath,
Bird bath,
and
right.
you get very, very good at it. I mean, I got so good at it, I was able to roll up like empty mustard packets and stuff like that, and you stick it into the nozzle and it makes it spray out. So that's your
Right.
little shower head,
I can
So I would just
imagine that in slow motion too.
Innovation,
Yeah,
innovation at its
exactly.
finest.
that little shower head doesn't have that pressure you want, but it's something.
You got the spray you need. The spray.
I got the spray I needed. You finish doing that, and then then you eat your breakfast, and then after that, I mean, really, your day is just it's reading, it's writing. If you're fortunate enough to have a television, some people do, then you can just kind of veg out on soaps.
And generally, you're having no communication with any other inmates.
There are 7 other people in that pod with you. There's 8 cells total in each pod. All cells have a single person. You can communicate with them, but it's not something that's encouraged that you do throughout the day all the time, because it starts to get disruptive to other people's programs. So, and when you're in sensory deprivation style solitary confinement, eventually noises start to really bother the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
So yeah, and it starts to mess with your mind to a point where if someone is being too talkative on the tier, you will really start thinking in your mind, man, this person's really doing this on purpose to piss me off right now.
Wow.
Like you start to go there,
Wow.
and that happens a lot in there.
Place to go.
Yeah, so you just kind of learn right away to just minimize your presence on the tier, and it's a respect thing, and you just kind of like isolate and stay to yourself and just study, and I did a lot of that. Every once in a while I'd play chess with someone on the tier. That was about it for 8 years.
Amazing. So I want to hear when you got out, but let me ask Kathy,
Okay.
when you were first, where were you first incarcerated?
Rikers Island.
You went to Rikers Island first.
Yeah, after central booking, you go to Rikers Island.
Right.
And I was held in the women's facility, which is the Rose M. Singer Center.
Right. And tell us what that was like.
You are all brought into this very small room, and you stand there, and what they do is they call everybody's name, and you pass through a metal detector. Then they've got this big open room with multiple cells in it, open cells in it, and they're all numbered. And that's part of the intake process. You rotate around in numerical order, and you go from one cell to the other. you're first put in with everybody. Then they move you to the next cell. That's got the magnometer, and also the boss chair. And
What's that? What chair?
they've
The
got
boss
shower
chair?
curtains up, with like partitions, if you will, that you sometimes see those collapsible curtains, maybe in a doctor's office or something.
Hey, Kathy, Kathy, hold on for a
And
second.
then what happens is you have to stretch. You're in with all these women. Boss chair, yes, I'm sorry. It's to detect metal. If you swallowed any metal, if you've got any metal that you put in any of your body cavities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy, your connection is really tough. So your audio is coming out all chopped up. And now we can't hear you at all. Maybe if you could try logging out and logging in again, maybe that'll help us.
On the phone,
Nope.
The phone might work. The phone sounded like
Maybe the phone is better, Kathy. It was better
Yeah,
when you had it before.
I'm gonna disconnect and I'll be right back on.
cool.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Get a
Yeah.
yard pass.
This is live TV.
We got movement.
So-
We got yard movement.
Oh man,
We have yard movement.
we got
in-
that medical call.
Medco.
In prison, everyone moves at the same time because they can't have random people walking around in a prison, or else that's bad, as you can imagine. And certainly you can't have anybody running. That's really bad. But they have these periodic, recounts where the guards just go around and make sure that the right number of prisoners is still there. And if God forbid the count is wrong, like that's pretty serious, potentially somebody has escaped. But it's always a question that the guards, what's that?
Or the guards just can't count.
Yeah,
that
that's
always
normally
happens.
what it is.
Yeah, that always happens.
It's higher math that
One,
they're
two, five,
dealing.
7.
Hey, they only need
All
a
right,
GED
so Artie.
to get the job.
Yeah, you need if that much. So why did they let you out after 8 years? Why didn't they just keep you there
Yeah.
in solitary?
Somebody also asked me what I was studying in there, and I'll tell you guys about that after.
Kathy's
What
back.
happened? Yeah. So eventually, can you guys hear me good? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
So eventually, yeah, I matured to the point where I was like, I can't live my life like this anymore. This is not what I was meant to do. This is not who I was meant to be.
Did you think you
see-
were going to be there for the rest of your life?
There was a time when I did. As a matter of fact, it's more than that. There was a time when that was the goal. Was that where I was
Really?
at? Yeah, in Pelican Bay Shoe, in the security housing unit, in that isolated solitary confinement supermax facility. That was the destination that people sometimes took pride in. So it was almost like, I've made it. This is where I'm gonna spend the rest of my days. I'm gonna be an old mob guy. I'm just gonna make a lot of money and sit here and just run shit in the state, right? And continue to work my way up until eventually I'm on top of it all, right?
Was that your thought for a while that you would do that?
That was my thought for many years. And in fact, what I had told myself was, I got into this mental trap where I told myself, I have failed at everything in my life. So if I fail at this, I have nothing left. So I have to be the most successful gang member that has ever existed in California.
What would that take? What would you need to be the most successful?
Well, I was already on the path. I was highly connected politically. I had a lot of power and a lot of respect. I certainly had a lot of education around what they teach. So I was considered the gang. We have our own educational curriculum, and we have our own training. We have documents that we study. We have, I've written hundreds and hundreds of essays in my life on various topics, from warfare strategies to just conducting oneself with respect. Anything that you can possibly think of, I've probably written an essay on it at some point in time. But I had gotten to a point where I was sort of working my way up that way, and what made me walk away was I just started to mature. You're whoever's watching this, I was 16 years old when I went away. I got to Pelican Bay for the first time. Remember, I was there twice. I wasn't there once. So I got there. That was my very first prison at the age of 18 in the 90s, which was a no joke place to be in the 90s on the main line. Yeah, lots of very volatile, lots of bloodshed, lots of violence. Everyone on that yard was a killer. There was no fighters. There was only stabbers. And so coming at that point from 18 years old, they really took me in and they brainwashed me, basically. They took out the old me and they put in the new me. And the gang, as I said, we have educational curriculum. So what they'll do is, we'll take someone and we'll put them in with someone who's older, who's been seasoned a little bit, been down. And that person will start to educate them in the cell. You start writing essays and, doing certain things for the gangs to sort of like slowly start earning your way up. It's definitely, it's a cookie cutter thing that's for any youngster that's coming in. And I was no different. What ended up happening was they realized that I had a brain, and, that's not as common as you would think, right? I mean, there's a lot of wise people in prison, but it's useful to a gang. Someone who's as young as I was, but was able to strategically see things, had great intuition, learned very quickly, could multitask and like all these things. These were benefits to the gang. So I had less violence personally for myself and more training. Like we have a lot of torpedoes. We need brains. We need leaders. So from that point forward, probably about 19, 20 years old, every cellmate I had after that was the leader. And I was celled up with nothing but leaders. And so being that young and having those connections gave me, as you can imagine, a lot of power. If I show up on the yard to a new place and they find out who I'm connected to, it's an immediate respect thing. Like, okay, this is yours if you want it.
Right.
So I had, sort of earned that. And what happened was in my mid-20s, I started to mature just naturally. Like, everyone's going to grow up eventually. You know what I mean? And as I started to get to my mid-20s, I started to actually just naturally age and mature. And I really started to be like, a lot of what I'm being told here is kind of like crap. Like, this is kind of hypocritical, this lifestyle we're living. I'm supposed to be this freedom fighter for this cause. And, prison's a very racist place in California as well. Yeah. It's highly racist, very race-based. So you're taught that you are representing your race and your people, and it's for the betterment of them. And yet that's my biggest enemy. Look just like me. It's just they were from this part of California and I was from another one. And when I got to my mid-20s, I was like, no, this is nonsense. When I was 18, I believed this shit, but now I'm in my mid-20s and this ain't sounding right. Yeah. So what ended up happening was I realized, towards the end of that 8 years, I was in my early 30s and I was like, man, this is not what I was meant to do. I recognize this for what it is now. And there's no way that I can continue living this lifestyle if I know where the lie is. It's one thing if you don't know the lie. If you know the lie and you continue to live it, that's a choice. So once I recognized it for what it was, I said, I got to get out of this. I'm meant for better things. I'm meant to actually help people. I still have a chance here. And then that's the first time that I started saying, like, you know what? I want to go home. I don't want to die in here. I want to go home. And that's how that happened. Yeah, but here's the thing, and I'm just going to add this on real quick, Richard. I told the institution, hey, I'm done. I'm walking away from this. They were shocked, like, holy crap, we can't believe you're leaving, right? And then they didn't believe me. So They didn't believe me. They kept me in solitary for 2 more years because they did not believe that I was being honest about walking away.
Wow.
Wow.
Artie,
That's well,
we talk a lot about on the yard about that. You know, a lot of people that have that experience and they change. You know, they go whatever it is and go. I was going the direction right, and then I had a turning point, and we call it the spark, right? Was there like that spark that happened for you that was like that you can identify, or was it something that happened over time?
There definitely was a spark. I talk about it on some of the other things I've been on. It was a moment. You will not feel direct sunlight in solitary confinement.
No.
I didn't see the sun for 8 years, and but there is in the roof of your pod, there is a sunlight. You know, they kind of sit on top of the ceiling and they let sun come in, but it's like filtered.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to our sunlight, but maybe there was a hole in it or some damage or something. But I was watching television. I was just sitting there, eating my lunch, and I felt warmth on my hand. And I looked down, and there was just a little piece of sunlight. And I looked up, and I realized it was coming from the sun light. But I think that something had damaged it, and there was a hole. Right. And the sun was over the building, and just a little bit was coming through. I felt the warmth because I hadn't felt it in so long.
And that's a literal spark too.
That was a literal spark where I looked at my hand and I was like, I got to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
You saw the light.
Yeah.
I literally was touched by the light.
Yeah. Well,
literally.
Thank God. Kathy, I'm glad we have you back. This looks like the connection's a lot better. So you're in Rikers, they're processing you, they're checking you to make sure you're not concealing any weapons or anything else. What happens next? Did they then bring you to a cell? Where'd you go?
No, that wasn't even, you weren't finished. That was just cell number 2. Cell number 3 was basically an open shower room which had shower heads on 3 of the walls, and you all had to go in there and strip. So you're in there maybe with 15, 20 women. There's no hot water. The guards are all standing there.
Guards, men and women, or just women?
It was just women.
Okay.
It was extremely painful, embarrassing, humiliating, and degrading. But all at the same time, I was in shock, because I just couldn't believe this was happening to me. And after you finish with the shower, they gave you a pair of paper shorts to put on. So you were allowed to put on your top, but you had to put on just these paper shorts. And you went into cell, I guess it was number 4, and that's where you waited to be seen by medical. And
that's using the term loosely, isn't it?
Yes. I am being very liberal with my words. Once you were cleared by medical, then you were assigned to a housing unit. And this whole process could take 24 hours or longer.
Wow.
So you hadn't had you wouldn't be sleeping for those 24 hours, basically.
I didn't. I have to be honest with you. I didn't. You know, there was 36 of us crammed into this cell, all sitting there with our paper shorts. A lot of the women had started to detox, you know, go through withdrawal symptoms, which was something that I never witnessed before. You know, and the natural instinct to me was, I wanted to help them. They were sick. I wanted to help them, but there was nothing I could do. You know, if I tried to help them, the guards would be suspicious, or the women were like, wait a minute, who's this white chick who's trying to help me here? So you just sat there. And then you were taken to your housing unit. You were given your pillow, your blanket, your toothbrush, toothpaste. And if they had it, these green plastic mugs, if they had any left. And then you were put in this housing unit that was composed, it was the cells where you actually got locked in individually. And this was all until you passed the TB test. So you were basically in quarantine for three 3 days
That's
roughly.
right, the old TB test.
Yeah.
I remember being in prison, being tested for that, and I was like, "Is there like an outbreak of TB that I'm not aware of?"
I know, right?
It was like an odd disease.
Everywhere
Like,
you went, they hit you with the TB. Every time you moved.
I know, but like,
Yeah.
who has TB?
And all the other diseases that are there, you're like, that's the one you're worried
Exactly.
about.
I know. And all the different things that you may have. TB. Didn't we like eradicate that like 100 years ago? I thought.
Oh,
So,
you know, I have to ask, are they doing this when people come in, testing them for COVID?
oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I
I'm
imagine.
sure they are.
Well, they
But
get quarantined when you go in. You get quarantined for 14 days.
yeah, but I guess it was like in their minds how, you know, contagious TB was going back years and years ago, but they never got out of that mindset. And they were just afraid that if they put you in general population and you were contagious, that it would just spread
Right,
like
spread,
wildfire.
yeah, spread crazy, yeah.
So I was never in the women's unit. I was in the men's unit, and then I was in the barge.
Oh, yes.
That was lovely. They
That sounds
have, they have New York City, where they put people in jail, is Rikers Island, which is a series of low-slung buildings that are just incredibly dirty and dingy, and they smell of like oil, fried food. And then they have this, then they ran out of room. So they had extra people. Where are you going to put them? So the city bought this huge barge, and they made that a jail. And I happen to hate being on boats. It's one of those things, I get seasick talking about it right now. And they put you on this jail on a barge, and on top of that, I'm seasick. I'm going, this was really my version of hell. But describe like the walls and the hallways where you were, Kathy.
Cinder blocks. They're all cinder blocks.
Right.
When I got out of, you know, reception and cleared my TB test, I was taken into another area, which they at that time called the annex. And it was a series of temporary hallways that led to, if you can imagine, double-decker mobile homes. And you were basically put in a room with 62 other women. And it was rows and rows and rows of beds. It was, I guess, like being in a homeless shelter.
Was that very frightening for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I you know, I can remember calling my husband and calling my family, begging them to get me out of there. And unfortunately, the judge had put me there on remand, so I had no bail.
Wow.
So there was no way they could get me out. And I just, you know, it was very difficult. And that's where I was sexually assaulted in the shower.
What can you tell us about, you don't have to get into the details at all, but you were going into the shower and there were 4 women waiting for you, or you just walked in at the wrong time?
What happened was, it started when I was still in quarantine, and the officer who was in charge of that housing unit, I guess did not like me. So when I asked him where I was moving to, he said to me, "Oh, we're sending you to the Hilton of housing units. And there's some women there who will welcome you."
What?
Yeah, I had no idea what he meant. So when I got there, it was a couple of days after I got there, but evidently he had told them that I was a snitch.
Oh.
And that, you know, that's what caused the assault. They were determined to teach me a lesson.
Wow.
My God.
Do you mind me? What
And
was your crime?
nobody was there to help you, obviously.
No,
So how long ago did this occur, Kathy?
this was back in 2006.
So we're talking 15 years ago, more or less?
Yes, yes.
It feels like right now that you're reliving it 15 years ago. Is that what's happening?
Yes, I am.
Wow. Do you think you'll ever sort of let it go? Or do you think, have you gotten used to the fact that this terrible memory will be with you forever?
The memory will stay. The pain and that is gone. You know, I'm not angry at the people who did this to me anymore. You know, in my mind, I've come to peace with it and almost forgiven them, if you will, similar to something that you would do, you know, with restorative justice. Because I knew that if I didn't, it was going to eat me alive.
Yeah. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and have like a terrible nightmare about this event?
The nightmares are actually not exactly that event, but like that I'm swallowing my tongue or that my head's been decapitated. And I actually wake up, sit up in bed, you know, reaching in the bed to see if the sheets are wet with blood.
Wow.
No. Wow.
I'll pull into my mouth and try to grab my tongue.
Wow. Did you make any friends in prison or jail?
I wouldn't necessarily call them friends. I did have associates, if you will. But I had people who realized that I was worth more to them alive than I was dead.
Why?
Because of my legal background.
Hmm.
Because I was a paralegal in Manhattan for over 25 years.
That's high value in prison.
High value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Jailhouse
then there
lawyer.
was, huh?
Jailhouse lawyer is always the guy.
Yes,
you turn
that's
to.
me. And then they put me in inmate grievance, which was another prized spot. So as I said, they realized that I was worth more to them alive than I was yet.
What's grievance? What's that?
Grievance is where if the inmates, actually in Rikers, because they're detainees, the majority of them, they have not yet been found guilty or sentenced. So
Right.
they're called detainees. And what it is if they have a complaint, say that their money wasn't deposited onto their account, or, you know, their phone numbers weren't put on their account, or if they didn't get paid what they were supposed to get paid, things like that. So even if there was a problem with an officer, the detainees, this was supposed to be like an impartial way,
Right.
for them to have it looked into. So there was myself and another detainee who worked there. There was a civilian who was in there, and then there was an officer who was assigned to the office. And we would basically every day go around the entire facility onto each housing unit and see if any of the women had any issues.
Got it.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Interesting. Now, was any of this, or did you have to address any racial things going on, including those 4 women who jumped you?
Yes. Yes.
What did you have to address on that?
People, you know, naturally thought that I was part of the KKK.
In New
And
York.
yeah.
That's odd.
That's odd.
Yeah. Or that I was planted there, as I said earlier. They thought, at one point, they thought that Geraldo Rivera put me in there so that we were filming a segment that he was going to broadcast on television.
The institution thought that?
No, the people I was in with.
Or the detainees thought that?
Yeah, they couldn't understand how a middle-class white woman could end up on remand at Rikers.
Right.
And it wasn't because my crime was not violent. You know, I took
Do
280.
you understand how you ended up there?
Yes.
Did you understand that initially, or did that take a little while of you just sort of shaking your head trying to understand how you ended up this way?
What happened was I was remanded to Rikers because I missed a court date because I was homesick. I was homesick with pneumonia. And I was originally, when I was arraigned, I was originally ROR. And I live in New Jersey, but I worked in Manhattan, so that's where I was charged. And I missed a court date, and my attorney sent letters to the judge telling him, you know, she's homesick, that we had doctor's notes and everything. So we thought that the court adjourned it. They didn't. They issued a warrant for my arrest, and they issued the warrant in August, and it was in November, and I happened to be home, and my daughter, who was not even 2 years old at the time, was in the car seat, in the back seat, and I was just running errands in town, and I got pulled over by the police, and all of a sudden it was multiple police cars, and they jumped out with their guns drawn. And
No, I'm saying, what, this is amazing story.
and my daughter screamed. She started to scream, and I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. And my daughter was screaming in the back seat, and they handcuffed me. And my daughter was trying to grab for me, and I couldn't touch her. So they took me to the police station, and they transported my daughter in a separate car. And they allowed me to call my husband so he could come pick her up. He was at work. And because she was so upset, what they did was they handcuffed one of my arms to the bench, and they allowed me to hold her in my other arm to calm her down. And she fell asleep in that arm. And the next time she saw me, I was in jail.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing this. I know it can't be easy, but it's the fact that you're sitting here is a testimony to your strength, you know, and you know, you're not giving up. Artie, people are endlessly fascinated by gang life. I think you know that. It's the subject of a million movies and TV shows and whatever. And a number of people have asked here, you know, as you talked about sort of maturing out of the thug life and sort of feeling like this is not what you were put on this earth for and there are better things. People want to know, was it hard for you to get out of this gang that you were so involved with?
What I tell people is that the hardest part of walking out of the gang was actually the struggle that I had within to leave it. When you identify a certain way for so long and you've basically been built into a certain individual, you know, there is no other identity apart from that. And I had this identity for so long that walking away from the gang was like walking away from the only identity I ever had.
Did you know who you were at that point?
I did not know. No. This is the other part of that. After I got through the fear of, you know, I'm walking away from the only identity I ever had, and I did it, and I pulled the trigger and walked away, I would, like I said, they kept me there for 2 more years, right? So when I would go to the shower, you go into the shower, they have a mirror in there. You don't have a mirror in your cell, but you do have a mirror in the shower. And I would just go in there and I would just look at myself in the mirror, and I didn't know who I was. Like, I just really did not know who I was for months. Like, because I had just walked away from everything. That started to change once I started getting more into like recovery and started doing work. I found a way to correspond with a 12-step sponsor. And this individual, he was from South Carolina. We started writing to each other.
I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you here. 12 steps. What are you suggesting? Were you doing drugs while you were in there, or, you know?
Well, drugs and alcohol were a part of my teenage years before I went in. I was heavily addicted to, back then, it wasn't meth yet, it was crank back then. The precursor to methamphetamine, right? And so I definitely had a drug problem when I went in. the gang I was a part of was very militaristic. We did not allow use of hard drugs by any of our members, or any of their members. I'm sorry. Use of hard drugs is a death sentence. So you're allowed to sell it. You can move it. You can make profit off of it. Don't ever let any of us catch you using it.
So why were you in a 12-step program for yourself?
I was grasping for straws. I started asking around, like, how am I going to find like who I used to be, and how do I get back to that person? And, people around me were like, hey, maybe you want to try recovery. And I was like, well, what's that? And they started telling me. So I found an address. I started to correspond with this man, Vern Kritz, no longer with us. And he took me through the 12 steps, and we started doing a lot of step work. He was an AA sponsor, and even though AA wasn't really my deal, it doesn't matter. It's all transferable. The benefits of that, of the inner work, are transferable. So it was enough to start to shape and reshape, like, oh man, this is who I used to be. I'm trying to get back to my loving self. I'm trying to get back to my spiritual self. In order to do that, I need guidance. Oh, 100%.
You are 100% back? Is that what you feel?
99%. I'm 99% back. No one should ever speak in absolutes. That's dangerous. Especially if you're
pretty amazing though, right? I mean, you recognize that, right?
Yes. And the reason why is because once I walked away from that and started to do the work on myself, I really did the work. I really threw myself into it. Again, grasping for straws. But the saying, you fake it till you make it. You do something like, I may not know what recovery looks like, but if I act like I know what it looks like, maybe I can act my way.
The
eventually
lie becomes the truth.
It becomes the truth. And eventually you will internalize. And that is what happened. So I had other sparks. That's how it happened with me.
The gang you were involved with, they didn't give you a hard time particularly?
Well, once you decide to walk away and you let the facility know that you're done, they move you to, you're still in solitary, but they move you to a different portion of it, away from others. And so no, there's no past. It really is blood in, blood out, just like in the movies. Once you've committed yourself to the gang, there's no walking away. There's no retirement. There's none of that. Oh, I'm a Christian now. No, it doesn't work that way.
That's what you've done though, isn't it? I mean, I don't follow. You've done that.
Oh, right? No, I consciously made the decision to put my life in danger by walking away. Right. I knew what I was doing.
Is your life in danger currently? Yes.
I will forever be wanted by this gang. There's a list that they have. It has a couple thousand names on it. It's written in very, very tiny writing. Imagine writing 10 lines in a single binder line. And all those 10 lines in a binder line are nothing but names. And you have scrolls with all those names. So we're talking a couple thousand people. I'm on that scroll. And to this day, people are carrying that around with them. Even worse, mine has a star next to it, which means this is a high value target. So I know this. I've written those thousands of names numerous times while I was a gang member. So I know that I'm on it now. It's part of the reason why I came down to Southern California. I'm from Northern California, and I'm too known up there. So I came down here for a new start, fresh life. Had never been to Los Angeles when I came out in 2015. Hadn't been here a single time, and have just built from there.
Wow.
Well, we all hope that you'll be safe here, and you'll never get
me too anywhere. But I got to tell you, man, I have a hard time shutting up. My thing is that I understand that, but I also at the same time, my spiritual calling, what has called me forward, including being here right now, it gives me the courage I need to say I'm willing to put my life in danger. Yeah. If that means I need to speak out against the gangs, I'm going to do that. And, I always used to say, I after I changed my life, like, I would rather die healing others than harming.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of good karma that you're in store for now versus the past.
And there's no,
So Kathy,
there's no better
go
place to
ahead,
hide
Seth.
out.
I'm sorry.
There's no better place to hide out than in Hollywood, for sure. So
Oh yeah, we're all a bunch of carnies out here.
It's a different gang for sure. Well, a lot less
Oh,
tough.
yeah.
I think.
Oh,
So
and I'm
Kathy,
part of the circus, man.
yeah, exactly.
yeah, I'm in the middle of selling a TV show to Netflix.
It's all show business, brothers. It's all show business.
So, all right, so Kathy, you're at Rikers. You're there for a while, and then over time they recognize this is a very smart woman with legal background. You know, whatever else they think about you, they know that you can provide value. That must have made a whole big difference in your whole experience, and you must have felt a lot safer, I would imagine, right?
I did. To be honest with you, I did. But you know, I made myself go numb when I was in there. Because I felt if I had any emotions, that would show weakness on my part. So I learned that I had to stuff it. And when I say became numb, I became numb to the strip searches and, you know, the unit searches, just everything. And it was like, I just had to like put it's locked away in the back of my mind in a vault. That's what I refer to it as. It's locked away. And, you know, when I get to a point where I feel safe and comfortable, sometimes those things do come out. But I never felt safe.
So sorry.
There was nobody you could trust.
Yeah. What would you say to someone going into prison, you know, who was, you know, never been or going into jail, someone like yourself? You know, what kind of words of advice or warnings or, you know, what did you do wrong that someone could learn from even to better survive the experience?
I'm not sure, because any woman that I speak to, we can relate to one another, because it's just such traumatic experience. What I would say to anybody is keep your head up. Don't let them steal your soul. They can take everything, your dignity, your self-respect, but they'll never take your soul.
How do you prevent that?
Strength. And I'm not talking physical strength, because I don't even know how to make a fist. I'm talking about keeping it together and knowing that you have a family to go home to, and that your life is worth living, and that you can take this experience, which is definitely a negative experience, and turn it into something positive.
Okay. Did you do that?
Absolutely.
What about prison, jail did you get positively out of?
It exposed me to a world that I never knew. I never would have known existed if I was not arrested and put in jail and prison. It made me aware of the inequalities in our justice system. It made me aware of the abuses that go on. And I feel, in a sense, that I was put there, if that makes any sense to you, that although although I was there to be punished, I was also put there for another purpose. And that was to be a witness to what was going on, so that when I got out, I could fight for these women. And that's what I do.
Well, a few people have been asking about what you guys are up to in your work, and we're gonna get to that. We want to first, address what they went through there, and then we're gonna hear about the amazing things they're up to now. Do you feel, Artie, that you were sent to prison for some kind of great purpose that you discovered?
That's a good one.
Thank you.
You may have done this a couple of times.
12 times.
Right. I would say that if I'm being honest, I would have to say yes. I do not believe that the things that we go through are merely meant to break us down and destroy us. I think that we go through the things we go through because there's a purpose that is underlining and underpinning that trauma and those experiences. I think that it is part of the full gamut of the human experience. So yes, on some level, I believe so. I will never, ever agree with the fact that I had to be sent to prison as an adult at the age of 16 for 21 years of my life in order for me to learn my lesson, so to speak. Maturity was going to happen regardless. I will say, though, that I committed a crime, and I did deserve to do time. I deserved to be away from, I needed to be away from society. I was a very dangerous person, and I don't want to ever minimize that. Despite anything that I'm doing today, I really was a very violent, troublesome young man. So I want to be very real about that. And I continue to get worse. 18 years old in Pelican Bay, 4 months later, involved in my first riot. 200 people, I'm shot, I'm stabbed. I'm in the infirmary for 30 days. And when I came out of the infirmary at 18, I turned 19. My birthday I spent for my first time in solitary confinement. I turned 19, and I made a decision. I'm going to have to be like everyone else around me, or I'm not going to survive here.
Right.
And so, yeah. So I became what they were for over a decade, and it was for survival. And then, but yeah, I would say so, because if I hadn't gone through those experiences, I wouldn't be able to reach a lot of the people that I'm reaching today. Today, I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to go into that, but I will say that, yeah, I will say that I wanted to make sure I let everyone know the ending of when I came out of solitary and we talked about that panic attack. You have to understand, when you've been isolated for so long and you haven't touched a single human being for almost a decade, to suddenly be immersed in an environment where there's a lot of people walking around, there's a lot of noise, movement. I found myself in a day room with probably about 50 to 60 people in it. And someone was talking to me. I was having a conversation, and it hit me. It was definitely a panic attack. Like, I felt it in every part of my skin, my brain, like I felt it. And I could not show it outwardly.
No.
Because if I were to do that, it's like chum to a shark, I can't fall apart in front of these people in this environment. So imagine having to suppress an actual panic attack just for the sake of survival. So that's what I had to do. And I realized that what it was just an overstimulation.
Yeah.
Too much going on. When I came home in 2015 and I transferred and I came paroled to LA, like, I'm immediately in Los Angeles, like cars, people, buses,
neon
and my first couple of months were torture. It was pain. Like, I was scared to come out of my program. I was scared to get on the bus. I was scared of old people, kids, everybody you can think of. I was scared, and I started to have judgments about myself, about why I was scared. And then, of course, my recovered self took over, and I realized, no, you are suffering from PTSD.
You're traumatized, man.
And you had it from all those traumatic experiences. Exactly. you're traumatized, and what is happening right now is you're being triggered by all of these sights, sounds, smells, and people around you. So
Makes sense.
you know what I did? I took a deep breath and I said, you know what? I'm not going to rush into anything here. I'm going to take my time. And that's exactly what I did. And slowly but surely, society got easier. And now it's been over 5 years.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Congratulations
Yeah.
on your success.
Yeah, what a trip. Kath, so you went through your trauma that
Mhm.
still bites and hurts. But let me ask, did you have any fun? Did you ever laugh in jail?
Yes, absolutely.
What made you laugh? Were there funny people? What about it?
Sometimes, we would say to one another, you can't make this stuff up. People would never believe this.
Right.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and you have to laugh because it was, yeah. I mean,
Is that outrageous?
I can't give you a specific instance, but there were some good times, yes.
There were a lot of characters in prison, right, Artie?
Yeah, laughter. I try to tell people all the time as I'm creating these new worlds out here, especially with my prison show. We'll get into all that, but it's like I want the reality to be. People don't understand just how much laughter there is in prison. There's a lot of laughter.
It's humorous.
It's
Exactly.
coping.
That it is. It's the only way to deal with it. All right.
Yeah.
Before we get back to you guys and to sort of bring things up to date, which is what we want to do, we're talking to Artie Gonzales. We're talking to Kathy Morse, who both did some serious time. Artie had a life sentence when he was a kid, did 8 years in solitary, a total of 21, and had sort of an epiphany, or as Seth calls, the spark, and that changed his life forever. And now he's doing amazing, creative, great things here in LA. We got to hang out a little bit, by the way, Artie.
I would love that, man. Things are opening up.
I know. Kathy did 5 years, and including a year in Rikers, and has the scars to show for it, and yet has taken that experience, and she's doing some amazing stuff that she'll tell us about in a minute. But for my own sanity and my own need to vent a little bit, just give me a minute here to share something, because every week I got something that's pissing me off in a big way. And if I don't let it out, I'll just explode and yell at Seth and Divine at work, and it won't be right for them.
Get it out. Get it out.
Get it out.
All right, I got to get it out. I got to get it out.
Got to get it out.
I think I am like most of us here. We're all guardedly optimistic. Maybe we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the pandemic tunnel, as more and more people are being vaccinated and cases are diminishing. I'm in a year, I haven't gone out once, and now I'm going out on both Saturday night for dinner with friends and on Sunday actually going to a restaurant. I'm in LA where things are pretty much locked down and things are starting to open. It stands to reason that as all this occurs, businesses, are going to be coming back in a big way. And the economy, is a lot of people believe is just, a little ways from really sort of exploding in a positive fashion. We, among other things, are in the employment business. We help through our business, 70 million jobs. We help folks with records get jobs. And before the coronavirus, we helped thousands of them do it. And it was very, very successful. And, we were very, very proud of the work. When the coronavirus hit in March, basically, our unemployment business went to zero. We were like a restaurant that was totally out of business. Companies laid everybody off. Everybody got fired. And nobody was hiring anybody else. For some companies, however, they were doing hiring. Companies like Amazon, supermarkets you'd read about, drug chains, they couldn't keep their shelves filled and they were on a hiring spree. And every day, a friend of mine would send me an article telling me, oh, look at this company. They're hiring a lot of people. You should call them. And this company's hiring a lot of people. Call them. And we would. And unfortunately, we never got anywhere with them. And I couldn't figure out why. Why is it if Amazon needs so many people, why can't they hire some of our people? But I learned. I spoke with someone high up in Amazon, and she told me that Amazon had deals with other big companies that had terminated or laid off a lot of people. And they were sending those workers who were furloughed or terminated to Amazon so that Amazon could hire them. And all of a sudden, Amazon had their choice of literally tens of millions of out-of-work Americans who had no criminal record, no issues, and that's who they started hiring. And all things being equal, I think it's fair to say they prefer hiring someone without a record than someone with. And I can't say that I blame them for that. So at least, all right, now I understand. Now, let me just interject something here as I do this little narrative. Most people, and certainly most human resource professionals at big companies, they are of the opinion, like most of the American public, I dare say, that if you were to hire someone with a record, well, chances are you'd get a lazy troublemaker, someone who'd show up stoned, someone who would fight with customers, maybe someone who would rob your place blind. That's like sort of a prevailing, expectation for this population. But the truth is very, very different. The data shows very, very different.
What's the truth, Richard?
As a matter of fact, there's a study out. What's that?
Give us them facts.
You're going to get some facts, my friend. 80% of hiring managers who have experience hiring folks with records, here's what they report. They believe that the quality of hire when hiring someone with a record is as good as, if not better. If not better than hiring someone without a record. As good as, if not better. Now, I know almost anybody would hear and they go, like, how could that possibly be? I get it. How could they be better than someone without a record who hasn't gotten into trouble? First of all, I would argue that anyone who hasn't gotten into trouble is one glass of Chardonnay away from being in trouble. So I would say that number one. I don't believe anybody is so above getting in trouble. But people who have records, because they have so few opportunities generally, when they get a job, and this is what the data says, this is not my opinion, although I agree, how they act on the job is they are so appreciative that somebody went out on a limb for them that they will do nothing generally to jeopardize their position. And they will be so grateful that they want to show their loyalty to the person that hired them and the company. And as a result, unlike their coworkers without a record who are pissed off that they have some shitty minimum wage job doing something, that nobody really wants to do, the people that we work with actually are appreciative and actually come to work with a smile on their face and actually are not going to do anything. They are loath to screw something up that they've got. So they come to work, they work hard, they smile, and they improve the entire workforce. And we hear this all the time. Now, the thing that freaks me out is that they're just starting to come out with data about the unemployment situation with people with records. And get this, it is said that the unemployment rate among the formerly incarcerated is somewhere between 60 and 70% right now. Before the coronavirus, it was about 27%, which is pretty damn high compared to the rest of the country, which is at 3.5%. Are these facts good for you, Artie? Because these are what the facts are saying.
It's pretty troubling.
60 to 70%. 6 out of 7 out of 10 people who have a record are out of work. Now, that's bad news for them, and it's bad news for everybody. Why is it bad news for everybody? Well, if you are a father and you have a record and you can't get a job and you have kids that need to be fed and a landlord that demands to be paid, and you can't get a job despite the fact that you went on 20 interviews, and each job is worse and worse that you go on, and you are willing to accept less and less for a worse and worse job, and you still don't get a job, what the hell are you supposed to do? Honestly, what are you supposed to do? What does government think you're going to do? You got to feed your kids. What parent in that situation wouldn't do what they had to do? The truth is, or what disappoints me, and I'm a Biden fan, but there's not a single recognition about the 70 million Americans with criminal records in the almost $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus bill. And it should have been. And this should have been addressed because it affects so many. 1 in 3 people have a record in this country. And so many of them are currently unemployed. And nothing good will come out of that for society, for them, their families, and their communities. I don't get it. I don't get why it wasn't addressed. So that's my rant. I'm sticking with it. Okay? So
We're sticking with you.
well, I'm with you, Dee. Let's get back to Artie and Kathy, because so many people want to hear about, they got out, what are they doing now? It's got to be a pretty amazing to take what they've been through, their passion, their experiences, their heart, their strength. Kathy, tell us about your work right now.
I am a legal services coordinator, case manager at the New Jersey Reentry Corporation here in New Jersey. We have 9 locations in this within the state, and I work with this population every day. And it's humbling to me because they tell me that they feel comfortable speaking to me than somebody else in the office because I get it.
I bet.
And I do. And, I'm glad they can confide in me, but I do see that daily struggle with people trying to find a job, and needing to put food on the table. And, if I had a magic wand, I would make sure that everybody got hired. But until we can educate those who have the powers that be who do the hiring to give individuals who are formerly incarcerated, a chance, they're just going to cast them aside. They're going to believe those preconceived notions that everybody has about somebody who's been in jail or prison. And one of my goals is to break that myth and to break the mold and educate people in the community.
You are doing it. You did it tonight. You are the real deal, Kathy, and you break the mold every single day you wake up. And the world is a better place for you. And you should know that. And everybody here knows that too. I promise you. So thank you for what you're doing. Kathy works at the New Jersey Reentry.org. Adrian put up the URL. Check out her organization. It's a big, successful organization that really reaches a lot of people, and it's pretty cool. So Kathy, thank you so much.
We appreciate you, Kathy.
Yeah, that's for sure we do. Artie, you, my friend, have taken a non-traditional route in your life. What are you up to?
I would say so. I think maybe you guys may have read my my article, The Unseen Shackles. I know you guys posted it today on Twitter. Part of that was I wanted to say, thank you, Kathy, for going there with us. A big part of my platform is letting allies know that formerly incarcerated people, when we speak in this space, You are asking us to revisit our trauma. And I want allies to remember that. It costs us something every time we go back there. And you certainly paid that price for us today. I want you to know that I'm aware of it, and I'm grateful to you for having the courage to do that. Thank you.
Likewise.
And we feel that about you too, Artie.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Artie.
absolutely right.
You too,
I give
brother.
myself a little dap, you know what I mean? There we go.
Brush the shoulder off. You know what I mean? Brush the
You know what I
shoulder
mean?
off.
Just a little, you know what I mean, JJ? I want to say that life has been great for me as far as like I was able to get back to my original childhood dream of working in the film industry. Literally have wanted this my entire life. So I started out as a production assistant and worked my way up. And now I scout for some of the biggest TV shows you guys are watching right now. I am producing my own content. I'm a partner at Spirit Medicine Productions, where we are shopping and writing traditional scripts, film, as well as television. I have a lot of meetings, including, like you mentioned, Netflix. We're also hoping something's cooking there with us as well. And then on the non-traditional side, I have stepped into the space in a brand and as a platform as a formerly incarcerated person, striving to be that example that we do not have to settle, and that people's preconceived notions about who we are wrong. And I want to reshape that and shift the narrative, change the culture, all that good stuff. I'm doing that in a number of ways. I do it by writing. I do it by producing. I'm writing a book called Lessons from a Lifer. Every chapter will take examples from my life, and it will give non-formally incarcerated people call to action for their own life and how they can apply the wisdom that we have in there. All of us who've done time know all the brilliant, wise lifers, right? There's a lot of wisdom, so much wisdom. I am only here because 99% of my rehabilitation came from other people like me. It did not come from the institution. I'm here because of the wisdom of those people. And in addition to that book, I'm also producing a series, an actual series called Lessons from a Lifer. My proof of concept video is already out on my Instagram now. You guys can follow me at Artie Gonzales. And I am getting ready to film my second and third episodes coming up here. I have really, really big guests coming up who has agreed to sit in the chair with me and have that conversation. And basically Lessons from a Lifer, the series, is meant to bridge the gap between me, our population, and the non-formally incarcerated. I figure if they can hear us have discussions around issues that we all have in common, they will see our commonality. They will see that we have more in common than we do differences. And that is where the bridge to reform happens with people who have preconceived notions. So I
100%.
definitely, yeah, absolutely. So basically that's exactly it, you know, producing, creating, making it happen.
That'll keep you busy. Please keep us on top of things so we can sort of get out the word and share within our community. That's it for tonight. We have more amazing guests who are coming on the yard to join us over the next couple of weeks. Next week, we have a treat. We're hosting Shaka Senghor. Shaka Senghor who happens to be Oprah Winfrey's good buddy. Mm-hmm. He was convicted of murder, and he wrote the incredibly powerful bestseller, Righting My Wrongs. Now, what we're going to do with this is a little bit different. We're going to be simulcasting it on Clubhouse. For those of you who are familiar with Clubhouse, it's, right now the hottest social network out there, and it has a huge audience. And we're going to have Shaka on the yard, but it'll be here as well as on Clubhouse. So if you're a Clubhouse fan and you spend time there, you could watch it there, or you can do it here. I'd sort of like to have you here so we can see you and you can ask questions here. We have coming up after that, Alice Johnson, who is also an amazing woman. She was pardoned by Trump. She was the drug dealing grandma. And I am, Barack Obama's buddy and Oprah's buddy and Kim Kardashian's best BFF, that's for sure. We also have a pretty cool guy. His name is Earlonne Woods. When he was in prison in California, Artie knows all about him. He won a Pulitzer Prize because he had a podcast called Ear Hustle that was just amazingly produced, amazingly powerful while he was in prison. So he's going to be joining us very, very soon. We also have Freeway Rick Ross, the ultimate OG, if there ever was one, and Divine's good buddy. This guy moved more drugs than all of our guests times 20. And he's going to be a total gas to have on. We're looking forward to him. And if you guys, perhaps we've had some of our current guests, some of the current people who are joining us who have been on our show, and we look forward to having them back. And I'm looking at you, Craig Cicel, of course, but others. Craig received a life sentence for dealing pot, if you can believe it. And he did a lot of time, and he got off on parole, not on parole. He was pardoned by, again, Trump. The only things that Trump ever did good, in my opinion, was helping my buddy Craig here. If you like what we're doing and you want to support us, we need all the help we can get, God knows. We launched a crowdfunding campaign on Republic. If you'd like to learn more about us as a company, not only are we interested in doing social good, but we're also interested in making a lot of money. Double bottom line returns, as they say. So, I believe that we will continue doing social good, and investors are going to do very well. But check it out at republic.co/commissary-club. Tell your friends about the yard. We are all, Seth and Divine and I, and my whole team and Adrian and all the other people who we work with, we are, it sounds corny or it's a line, but we are absolutely humbled to have the chance to work with folks who have done time. As Artie said, some of them are so wise, and so many of them are so soulful and real and golden hearted, like Artie and Kathy. Who the hell of us has never made a mistake? Who hasn't asked for a second chance? We just think everybody deserves a second chance. And we're the last line of defense against that, so be it. So thank you for joining us. Please come again. We will have episode 2 of season 2 next week. That'll be Shaka Senghor, and you definitely don't want to miss that. So please register for that. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Peace, Artie.
And by the way,
Thanks, Kathy.
if you want to stick around here,
Rich.
if you want to stick around here in the yard, you can stay here till forever. We have people who've stayed here till 2 o'clock in the morning, just hanging out and talking to each other. So that's pretty cool. So if you'd like to do that, I urge you to do so.
Just
Thanks
be
so
going
much,
before we go.
everybody. Have a good night.
Ah!